Ladies and gentlemen, today I stand before you not as a symbol of perfection, but as a testament to possibility. Life has a way of throwing storms at us, storms that shake our foundations, test our resolve, and sometimes leave us feeling broken. But let me tell you something. Even in the wreckage of those storms, there is power. That power lies in your voice. Your voice is not just sound, it's not just words slipping into the air. It's a force that can shatter silence, inspire change, and move mountains. Too often we underestimate it. Too often we let fear, doubt, or circumstance convince us to stay quiet. But I'm here to tell you, the moment you choose to speak, you reclaim your strength. I've seen darkness. I felt the weight of a world that seemed to collapse around me. There were days when getting up felt impossible, when the mirror reflected a stranger, and when the future looked like a blank page I didn't know how to fill. But in that silence, I found something. I found that my voice, my story, could light a spark, not just for me, but for others. Every one of you has a story. Every one of you has faced a mountain, whether it's loss, failure, pain, or fear. And every one of you has a choice to let that mountain stand in your way or to speak to it, to tell it, you will not define me. You will not stop me. Because when you use your voice, you don't just move mountains. You build bridges. You create paths for others who feel lost, who feel alone, who feel like their own. Your voice doesn't need to be loud to be powerful. It doesn't need to reach millions to matter. Sometimes it's the quiet whisper to yourself in the mirror, I am enough. Sometimes it's the courage to say no when the world expects a yes. Sometimes it's the strength to ask for help when you've been carrying the weight too long. That's where it starts. That's where the movement begins. Look around you. The world is full of people waiting to be heard, waiting for someone to show them that their struggles don't disqualify them, but define their resilience. You can be that someone. Your voice can be the echo that reminds them they're not alone. It can be the call that lifts them when they've fallen. It can be the roar that shakes the earth beneath their feet and says we rise together. So I challenge you today, don't let your voice gather dust. Don't let it sit unused while the mountains grow taller. Speak your truth. Share your story. Use it to heal, to inspire, to fight for what's right. Because when you do, you will see that mountains don't just move. They crumble. Your voice is your power, your voice is your gift, and trust me when I say this, it's a gift the world desperately needs. So go out there, speak and watch the impossible become possible. Your voice is a force, far more than just a collection of sounds or fleeting words that drift into the air and fade away. It's a living, breathing power, a spark that ignites something deep within you and ripples outward to touch the world. Think about that for a moment. The ability to speak, to express, to declare what you feel, what you believe, what you've endured. It's not a small thing. It's a gift that carries the weight of your experiences, the fire of your convictions, and the potential to alter everything around you. Too often we let it sit dormant, locked away behind fear or hesitation, convinced it's not loud enough, not strong enough, not significant enough to matter, but that's where we're wrong. Your voice is a force because it's yours, uniquely shaped by every step you've taken, every tear you've shed, every triumph you've claimed. It doesn't need to thunder across a stadium or echo through history books to hold meaning. It's a force because it belongs to you, and no one else can wield it the way you can. Imagine a single stone dropped into still water. The splash is small, unassuming, but the ripples spread far beyond where it fell. That's what your voice can do. It starts with a whisper, a quiet resolve in the dark, a trembling word of defiance against despair, and it grows. It reaches places you never thought it could. It's not about volume or eloquence, it's about courage. The courage to break the silence that weighs you down, to push back against the doubts that tell you to stay quiet, to step into the light and say, this is who I am, and this is what I've learned. That act alone can shake the ground beneath your feet. It can crack the walls of isolation, topple the barriers of shame, and send a message to anyone listening that they too can find their strength. Your voice isn't just sound, it's a declaration of existence, a refusal to be erased by circumstance. And circumstances, they'll try to silence you. Life doesn't hand out easy days like party favors. It throws storms your way, moments that knock the breath out of you, that make you question if you've got anything left to say. Maybe it's a loss that hollows you out, a failure that stings like salt in a wound, or a fear that wraps itself around your throat and squeezes tight. In those moments, it's easy to think your voice has been stolen, that it's too weak to matter. But here's the truth. Even in the wreckage, your voice is still there, waiting. It's not gone. It's tempered, sharpened by what you've been through. When you choose to use it, even if it shakes, even if it falters, you're doing something extraordinary. You're turning pain into power, fear into fuel. You're proving that the storms didn't win. That's where the real magic happens, when you realize your voice can do more than just survive. It can inspire. It can reach someone else who's sitting in their own darkness, wondering if they're alone, wondering if anyone understands. You don't need a stage or a spotlight for that. It could be a conversation, a kind word, a story shared over coffee. It could be the way you stand up for what's right, even when your knees are trembling. Every time you speak, you're planting a seed. You're showing someone else that their voice matters too, that they don't have to stay buried under their own mountains. And those mountains, they're not as immovable as they seem. They loom large, yes, intimidating, overwhelming, but they're made of earth, not steel. Your voice is the tremor that starts the shift, the crack that widens into a collapse. It's the force that says, I'm still here, and in doing so changes the landscape. So don't underestimate it. Don't let it gather dust while the world tells you it's not enough. Your voice is a force because it's alive with your truth, your spirit, your will to keep going. It's the sound of your humanity, raw and real, and it has the power to break silence, to spark change, to move mountains. All it takes is the choice to use it. Resilience through adversity is not about avoiding the storms of life. It's about standing in the rain and refusing to let it drown you. It's about understanding that the challenges you face, the ones that threaten to break you, don't get the final say unless you hand it to them. Life has a way of testing us, of throwing curveballs that hit harder than we expect. Maybe it's a moment when everything you built crumbles, or a day when the weight of loss feels like it's pressing the air out of your lungs. Maybe it's the sting of rejection, the ache of betrayal, or the slow grind of a struggle that won't let up. Those are the moments that feel like they define you, like they've carved your name into stone as someone who fell, someone who couldn't keep going. But that's not the truth. The truth is those moments are just chapters, not the whole story. And your resilience, your choice to speak and rise above them is what writes the ending. Think about what happens when you're pushed to the edge. It's easy to shrink, to let the noise of the chaos convince you that you're too small, too fragile to matter. But resilience isn't about being unbreakable. It's about bending without snapping, about finding a way to stand even when your legs are shaking. And that starts with a decision, the decision to not let the adversity own you. You don't have to pretend it didn't hurt. You don't have to act like the scars aren't there. What you do have to do is refuse to let them be your identity. The pain, the setbacks, the nights you spent wondering if you'd make it through. They're real, but they're not you. You are the one who keeps going, the one who finds a thread of hope and pulls on it, the one who chooses to open your mouth and say, "This won't be the end of me." That choice to speak is where the shift happens. It's not about shouting from rooftops or delivering a perfect speech. It's about giving voice to your survival. Maybe it's a quiet "I'm still here" whisper to yourself in the mirror. Maybe it's telling someone else, "I've been where you are, and I made it through." It's the act of turning your struggle into something tangible, something you can hold up and say, "This happened, but it didn't win." That's resilience. Not the absence of wounds, but the strength to wear them as proof of what you've overcome. When you speak, you take the power back from the things that try to silence you. You tell the world and yourself that the story isn't over, that there's more to you than the fall. Adversity doesn't care about your plans. It doesn't wait for you to be ready. It crashes in uninvited and leaves you scrambling to pick up the pieces. But those pieces, they're not just debris, they're building blocks. Every time you choose to rise, every time you use your voice to claim your space, you're stacking those blocks into something new. You're not erasing what happened. You're reshaping it. That's what makes resilience so powerful. It's not a denial of the hard stuff, but a defiance of its control. You get to say, "Yes, this broke me, but I put myself back together." And every time you do, you get stronger. Not because the pain gets smaller, but because you get bigger than it. It's easy to think that's what it takes to make a difference, that your voice only counts if it's amplified, polished, and heard by thousands. But that's a lie we've been sold. The real power isn't always in the volume, it's in the authenticity, the courage it takes to speak even when no one's listening, even when your words tremble, even when they're just for you. A small voice, a single word spoken in the right moment can start a chain reaction that shifts everything. It's not about how far it travels, it's about where it lands. Picture this, a morning when you wake up feeling like the world's too heavy, when the mirror reflects someone you barely recognize, when the doubts in your head are louder than anything else. In that stillness, you say to yourself, "I can keep going." It's barely audible, a breath more than a statement, but it's there. That's a small voice. It's not a speech to a crowd or a rallying cry. It's a lifeline you throw to yourself, and in that moment, it's enough. It doesn't need an audience to hold power. It doesn't need applause. It doesn't take much to make that connection. You don't need to be a poet or a preacher. Don't need to have all the answers or a perfectly polished tale. Your story doesn't have to be grand. It just has to be real. Maybe it's the time you fell apart and didn't know how to get back up, or the day you felt invisible and fought to be seen. Maybe it's the quiet victory of choosing to try again when giving up felt easier. When you share that, you're not just recounting events, you're offering a lifeline. You're telling someone else, someone who's been staring at their own mountain and wondering if they're strong enough to climb it, that they're not the only one who's ever felt that way. That's the bridge, a thread of recognition, a moment of me too that pulls them out of the dark. Think about how it feels to hear someone else's truth and realize it mirrors your own. It's like a weight lifting, a sudden breath when you didn't even know you were suffocating. That's what you give when you speak up. You don't have to solve their problems or erase their pain. Just showing them they're not alone in it can be enough to keep them going. It's not about fixing, it's about connecting. And that connection doesn't need a big stage or a viral moment. It can happen in a conversation over coffee, a late night text, a passing comment that sticks with someone longer than you'll ever know. Your story becomes a signal flare, a light in the fog, letting them know there's someone else out there who's walked a similar road and kept moving forward. Those bridges don't just span the gap between you and one other person. They can stretch further than you imagine. One voice inspires another, and then another, until what started as a single thread becomes a web of strength. Someone hears you and finds the courage to share their own struggle. Someone else listens and decides they're not done fighting. It's a quiet revolution, built not on noise, but on honesty, on the simple act of saying, "This is." You become proof that survival is possible, that the mountain isn't the end of the story. And for someone who's been stuck, who's felt like their struggle is a life sentence, that proof can change everything. It can be the difference between giving up and taking one more step. The beauty of this is that it's not about you being perfect or having it all figured out. The messiness of your story, the stumbles, the scars, the days you barely made it through, is what makes it relatable. It's what makes the bridge solid. People don't need heroes who never fall. They need humans who've fallen and gotten back up. When you share that, you're not just helping someone else, you're reminding yourself you're not alone either. Every time you speak, you reinforce your own resilience, your own place in a world that's bigger than your struggles. So don't hold back. Don't think your story is too small or too broken to matter. It's yours and it's enough. Share it and watch how it builds bridges. How it turns "I'm alone" into "we're in this together." Because in the end, that's what moves the mountains, not just one voice, but all of us, linked by the stories we dare to tell. Take action. Those two words are a call to arms, a refusal to let your voice sit idle while the world spins on without your mark. It's so easy to stay silent, to let fear wrap its fingers around your throat and convince you that speaking up won't change a thing. Doubt creeps in like a shadow, whispering that your words are too small, too unsteady, that they'll get lost in the noise of bigger voices or swallowed by the indifference of those who don't want to hear. Well, here's the truth. Your voice isn't meant to gather dust on a shelf, a relic of what you could have said. It's a tool, a weapon, a gift, and it's yours to use. When you let it out, when you push past the hesitation and give it air, you're not just breaking your own silence, you're cracking the foundation of everything that's held you back. Action starts with that first step, that first word, and it's more powerful than you know. Fear is a thief. It steals your momentum, tricks you into believing that staying quiet is safer, that keeping your head down protects you. But safety isn't the same as living. Every time you swallow your truth, every time you let doubt win, you're handing over a piece of yourself to the things you wish were different. Maybe it's a wound that needs healing, or wrong that needs righting, or a dream that's been buried too long. Whatever it is, it's waiting for you to claim it, and that starts with your voice. You don't have to have all the answers or a perfect plan. You don't even have to know where it'll lead. You just have to start. Say it out loud to yourself, to someone who needs to hear it. Because the moment you do, you're no longer a bystander in your own life. You're a force. What does action look like? It's not always loud or dramatic. It can be the quiet resolve to tell your story when you'd rather hide it, to admit you're hurting when pretending feels easier. It's the courage to say no when everyone expects a yes, or to ask for help when you've been carrying the load alone. It can be standing up for someone else, calling out what's wrong, or fighting for what's right, even when your hands shake. Action isn't about being fearless. It's about moving through the fear, letting your voice cut through it like a blade, and every time you use it, you're not just healing yourself, you're planting seeds for something bigger. You're showing others what's possible, proving that change doesn't wait for permission, it waits for someone to speak. Don't fool yourself into thinking it's pointless. The world isn't as immovable as it seems. The problems that loom large, the injustice, the pain, the apathy, they thrive on silence, on the belief that no one will challenge them. But your voice, it's a spark. It can light a fire that spreads, that warms the cold corners and burns down what needs to go. You might not see the full impact. Maybe it's one person who listens, one mind that shifts, one step towards something better. But that's enough. Action isn't about instant victory. It's about momentum. It's about refusing to let the hard things win by default. Every word you speak is a brick in the wall you're building, a wall of resilience, of hope, of change. And here's the secret. Taking action doesn't just transform what's outside you, it transforms you. Every time you use your voice, you remind yourself who you are. You shake off the dust of doubt and step into your own strength. You heal by speaking your wounds into the open, letting the air touch them instead of letting them fester. You inspire by showing up, by proving that even the smallest fight matters. You fight for what's right and find your own footing in the process. So don't wait for the perfect moment. It doesn't exist. Don't wait for someone else to do it. They might not take action now. Use your voice. Let it heal what's broken, inspire what's possible, and fight what's unjust. Because when you do, you're not just speaking, you're rewriting the story, yours and everyone else's, one brave word at a time. Mountains can crumble, not because they're weak, but because your voice has the power to make them tremble. We look at the obstacles in our lives, those towering, unyielding things that block the sun and cast long shadows, and we think they're permanent. Pain, fear, failure, injustice, they rise up like peaks, jagged and cold, daring us to believe they'll stand forever. It's easy to feel small against them, to assume they're too solid to shift, too rooted to fall. But here's what they don't tell you. Mountains aren't invincible. They're earth, not iron, and earth moves when something strong enough pushes back. Your voice is that strength. When you speak your truth, when you let it ring out, raw and real, you're not just standing there, you're striking the first blow. And with every word, every choice to use it, you chip away at what seemed impossible until it starts to give way. It's not about brute force or endless shouting. The power isn't in how loud you are, it's in what you say and why you say it. Your truth isn't a battering ram, it's a fault line. It finds the cracks in the mountain, the places where it's already weak, and it presses in. Maybe your truth is the story of how you survived when everything tried to bury you. Maybe it's the anger you've held too long, finally set free to demand better. Maybe it's the hope you've clung to, fragile but fierce, that refuses to let the dark win. Whatever it is, when you give it voice, you're doing more than venting. You're telling the mountain, you don't own me. And in that act, you prove the impossible isn't as solid as it pretends to be. Think about what happens when you speak and someone hears you. The mountain doesn't just shift for you, it shifts for them too. Your words can be the spark that wakes someone else up, that makes them see their own power. You say, I faced this and I'm still standing, and suddenly they realize their own mountain isn't the end. It's not a solo victory. It's a chain reaction. One voice becomes two, then 10, then a chorus, and what once loomed untouchable starts to shake under the weight of all that sound. That's how mountains crumble, not with one big crash, but with the steady, relentless pressure of people who refuse to stay silent. Your truth doesn't just move your world, it moves the ground beneath everyone who's been waiting for a reason to believe. The impossible loves to masquerade as fact. It tells you the mountain's too high, the fight's too hard, the outcome's already written. But every time you speak, you rewrite that script. You turn I can't into I did. You take the thing that scared you, broke you, held you down, and you make it bow. It's not magic, it's will. It's the stubborn, messy, beautiful will to say what's real. And watch it work. You don't need to be perfect or fearless, you just need to be honest. That honesty is the tremor that starts the avalanche. It's the moment you stop letting the mountain define the horizon and start carving your own path through it. And when the dust settles, when the impossible lies in pieces at your feet, you'll see what you've done. You'll see that it wasn't just about you, it was about everyone who needed to know they could do it too. The crumbled mountain isn't the end. It's the beginning, it's the space you've cleared for something new, something better. Your voice didn't just break rock, it built possibility. It showed you and everyone watching that what once blocked the way can become. That's the secret. The mountain doesn't have to stay. It can fall, it can fade, it can turn to dust under the weight of what you dare to say. So don't hold back. Don't let the size of the mountain fool you into thinking it's stronger than you are. Speak your truth, shaky, loud, soft, whatever it is, and watch what happens. The impossible isn't a wall, it's a challenge. And when you meet it with your voice, when you let it carry everything you've got, you'll find out what it's really made of. Mountains can crumble, they do crumble. And it starts with you.